Revenge films.
My husband was born and raised in the West by his farmer parents, and I was born and raised in the eastern part of the country. As for our engagement ceremony, it was held here in the East. My husband's university is in the metropolis, so we held our wedding ceremony near that university. My work only allows me 3 days off from work during New Year's and another 3 days for Thanksgiving. I haven't been to my husband's parents' house yet because it hasn't been long since we got married. Then, in July of that year, my grandfather-in-law passed away. It was my first time going to my husband's parents' house, so I brought an apron with me because I was told it is a common tradition in their family to do so for women when they meet their parents-in-law for the first time in their house. Apparently, it's to show that one is prepared to fulfill their role as a wife, such as doing the chores at home. Then, the moment we arrived at their house, my mother-in-law stepped out of the front door and stood there with a smug look on her face.
"Oh, what's with that outfit? You're dressing like a guest when you're not. You didn't even bring an apron. I prepared one for you because I know you wouldn't bring one."
She grimaced and uttered those words, so I took out the apron that I brought from my bag, to which she grumpily responded,
"Huh? Did you bring an apron? Is that so?"
I knew right then and there that she was trying to one-up me to assert dominance over me. I was a bit irritated by her behavior, but I held it in knowing that I didn't have to come back to this place unless I have to attend another funeral. So I decided to pretend to listen to her and obeyed her. The moment I stepped into their house, she made me work like a slave, ordering me to do this and that. However, when I make a single mistake, my mother-in-law grabs that chance to scold me, saying,
"Just as I thought, spoiled daughters born and raised in the city don't know a thing."
She called me spoiled and other rude names and made fun of me. What's even worse is that whenever my husband is not in the vicinity, my mother-in-law says mean things in a sarcastic tone. So my irritation meter kept going up. But since I'm here to hell with a funeral and to pay respect to my father-in-law, I controlled my feelings by telling myself to hold it in. Whenever my husband is around, my mother-in-law acts very nonchalantly like an ordinary mother, but she makes my husband run errands outside so she can have a one-on-one time with me. Then, the moment my husband is out of the room, she complained bitterly, so it was very depressing. Then, the long-awaited final day arrived. Thinking that there was no way I would come back to this house ever again, I tried to leave the place before the drinking party, because I finished fulfilling my duties. However, my mother-in-law saw me and stopped me from leaving.
"Where do you think you're going? At least join us for a drink with the relatives, and make your face known to the family. You married into this family after all."
My mother-in-law said those words and grimaced. So I thought that, well, since my last day here, I guess I should at least have a drink with everyone and get to know them a little. My mother-in-law might not have the best attitude in the world, but I should give my husband's relatives the benefit of the doubt. However, when I went around and tried to pour them a drink, they all ignored me like I was a ghost invisible to them. It was before everyone raised their glasses for a toast, so the glasses were resting upside down on the table. They ignored me even though I asked them if they needed their glasses filled. They looked away and didn't even bother to hand me their empty glasses. After asking the first two people and getting rejected, I thought that they probably just don't drink alcohol, or that they probably just are so absorbed in their conversations, but almost all of them ignored me and some even rolled their eyes at me. What's even worse is that they did it deliberately. They grinned as if trying to suppress a laugh. There was a very uncomfortable silence throughout. I wasn't given a cushion to sit on from the start. I was certain that my mother-in-law had something to do with this. Since it was the last day, my husband wasn't in the house with us because he went out to buy souvenirs for his colleagues and mine. I was so pissed off with everyone's behavior, so I went to the front door and took out my shoes from the shoe closet. Then I did the most shocking thing I ever did in my life. I climbed onto the table and stomped my feet with my shoes on. I couldn't control myself anymore out of rage, so I kicked the food out of the table like it wasn't uncommon to do. At first, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw me stomping and kicking, not registering in their raisin-sized brains what was happening in front of them. But the moment they realized what was happening, my mother-in-law and father-in-law stopped me and hurled me out of the house. Then other relatives, the uncle, together with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, started preaching to me. But I ignored them all and called my father instead. "My husband, parents, and relatives did this and that to me," I told my dad. "I sure am glad that I was raised in the city. I am so shocked that my husband's relatives are all rude and lack humanity," I complained to my dad. I then walked out of the house and stood by the fence, where I called my friend on the phone and loudly told her every rude thing my husband's relatives did to me. Then the neighbors seemed to have heard my loud voice, because they came out of their house to see what was going on. That is why I took that chance to tell them, "Is this normal behavior in this town? The whole extended family pesters the wife. This is outrageous! I'm so shocked!" I announced to the whole neighborhood. To my surprise, there were many people who like gossip who are also friendly people, and they were on my side.
How could they do that? One must be exhausted from the long travel.
You go, girl. Make them regret what they did to you. Your mother-in-law is such an idiot.
Your parents-in-law's family is insane. 18 years ago, they didn't even contribute any monetary amount to the town's annual festival. They all told me. I probably looked like a gossip, so they let me join their group. I was able to fit in right away because I had plenty of stress I needed to relieve. After a few hours, my husband finally arrived home. So I reported everything that his parents and relatives did to me and how they treated me very rudely. After hearing me speak, my husband was enraged by what happened.
What in the world were you thinking? Just because Kimberly married me and she's a part of the family now, doesn't mean you can say and do whatever you want to. She came all the way here to help with Grandpa's funeral. Aren't you ashamed of yourselves for group bullying a single person?
My husband was furious and scolded them. The room was still a mess because whereby the food and alcohol I kicked earlier were cluttered all over the floor. The oldest man in the group shouted to get it cleaned, but I got even with them by ignoring him like he ignored me earlier, and then I focused on my phone instead. I know that what I did was a bit too much, but how did they expect me to react when they bullied me like I was a nobody? Their hearts are rotten because who in their right mind would do such a thing? The other relatives were looking at each other, trying to suppress their laughter because my husband was angry. So I told my husband, "You don't have to get angry, Marvin. I already let the whole neighborhood know about what they did to me, and I already told my parents about this, so I feel a bit better now." Upon hearing that, my parents-in-law gave me a smug look. When I went back into the house to get my things, the neighbors who I talked to earlier came with me and told my parents-in-law,
"Parents don't give their son's wife a tough time like that now. I'm warning you, you better stop doing that. Young people nowadays are quite strong after all."
That's what she said on their face. Come to think of it, she's actually right. There must have been many wives who didn't talk back to their mother-in-law, so they just shut up and held it in. But modern wives now know how to defend themselves when they get bullied or abused. While I was waiting at the front door, my husband went inside the room and brought my things for me. Then before we left, he faced them and shouted,
"You should be ashamed of yourselves!"
He scolded them for me. When my husband seriously got mad this time, his relatives drooped their shoulders as if to show defeat. Seeing that unfold before their eyes, the neighbors laughed so hard. Even when we arrived home, my husband still couldn't contain his anger. He then told me that he would cut ties with his parents, so we don't need to go back to that hellish place anymore. Of course, I don't have to deal with his pesky realities as well. However, since there is not much money to be made with the farm, my husband used to send money to them when he got a bonus from work. But since he will cut ties with them, there's no need to send them money anymore. I heard him say all that on the phone call with his parents. My parents-in-law do not spend extravagantly, but I'm sure that the money that my husband sends to them once every half year is quite a huge help to them. Thinking that they're screwed if my husband cuts ties with them, my mother-in-law tried to apologize for her actions, but my husband replied,
"Seriously? You've got to be kidding me! Am I a joke to you? I don't have the face to show Kimberly's parents now because of the shameless act you lot did to Kimberly. She went all the way to your house to help, but you, Dad, and our relatives all came together and bullied her! What has gotten into you? You are all insane!"
"I will apologize for that. Your wife is still young, so we just thought that she needs to learn proper etiquette and manners, so we taught her."
I wonder who needs to be taught manners and right conduct. I've never been so ashamed in my life with you as my parents. You're a disgrace to the family. You seem to not respect or care about Kimberly, so I will cut ties with you. That's it from me.
My husband then hung up the phone. I sure was offended by my parents-in-law and relatives-in-law, but I'm glad that my husband was on my side and understood the situation. We didn't hear from my parents-in-law for a while, but when the month when my husband gets paid a bonus arrived, my mother-in-law contacted him again and she begged him to continue sending them money again. My parents-in-law live in a very old house in the village, so it seems like it needs to be repaired now and then. My husband agreed to send the money for the repairs every half year, only after they did the house repairs and have the full amount. However, since my husband stopped sending money to them, so with only money earned from the farm, they couldn't afford to repair the parts of the house that needs fixing. That is why my parents-in-law were in tears and begged my husband to send them money for the repairs and some for their living expenses. My parents-in-law are already old, so it's not like they are able to plant many crops and livestock. So they probably thought that if my husband sent them money like he used to, they'll be able to afford the repair costs, and as long as they are modest with their expenses, they won't be burdened with financial problems. But since that money no longer exists, so they were very desperate for him to continue like before. However, my husband never imagined that his parents would bully me. He was very disappointed by them, so he never changed his mind. Of course, if that happened, no matter how well they know each other in the countryside, it becomes a problem when they don't pay since it's business. Because of that, they were in trouble, and the case has been taken to court. It's none of our business anymore, so I don't care about it. Apparently, my husband was loved and trusted by everyone in the town because of his personality and his intelligence. The rumors about that intelligent and trustworthy man's wife was bullied by his family has spread throughout the town. So the citizens of the town gave them cold shoulders and stares whenever they see my parents-in-law. They got what they deserved.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.